When my daughter-in-law told me to sign over my house, I smiled at her like I always did. I didn't know then that she was counting the days until my funeral. My name is Margaret Smith. I'm 63 years old now, but the story I'm about to tell you starts when I was just 60. That's when I learned that the people you love most can be the ones hiding the darkest secrets. 3 months ago, my own son Christopher and his wife Vanessa pushed me and my husband William off a hiking trail in the Blue Ridge Mountains. We fell 60 feet into a ravine. As I lay there on the rocks, barely able to breathe from the pain, I heard William whisper to me, "Margaret, don't move. Don't make a sound. Pretend you're gone." But that wasn't the worst part. The worst came later, when I learned what our children had been hiding for 30 years. I'm going to tell you everything. And by the time I'm done, I hope you'll understand why I still wake up some nights reaching for children who aren't there anymore. Let me take you back to the beginning. William and I got married in 1985. I was 23, fresh out of college with a teaching degree. He was 25, working construction and building furniture on the side. We didn't have much money, but we had each other, and that felt like enough. Our first house was a little 2-bedroom place on Maple Street in a small town in Virginia. Nothing fancy. The paint was peeling on the porch, and the kitchen counters were that ugly yellow color they used in the 70s. But it was ours, and I loved every inch of it. We had 2 sons. Robert came first in 1987. He was born laughing, I swear. From the moment he opened his eyes, that boy had a smile that could light up a room. He was always running, always climbing, always asking questions. By the time he was 3, he was taking apart his toys to see how they worked, and by 5, he was helping his dad in the workshop, handing him tools and nodding seriously at every instruction. Christopher came 4 years later in 1991. He was different from Robert right from the start. Quieter, more watchful. He'd sit in the corner and observe everything with these big brown eyes, not saying much but taking it all in. I used to tell William that Christopher was born old, like he'd been here before and was just waiting to see what would happen next. I loved them both the same. As a mother, you have to. But I won't pretend they were easy in the same ways. Robert was easy because he gave you his whole heart without asking for anything back. Christopher was harder because you never quite knew what he was thinking. Every Sunday, we'd go to the little church downtown. After service, we'd come home and have lunch at the dining room table William built with his own hands. Robert would talk nonstop about school, about his friends, about the books he was reading. Christopher would eat his food slowly and answer questions in one word whenever possible. "I don't know, Mom." "Fine." "Okay." That was Christopher. I thought he was just shy. I thought he'd grow out of it. I thought a lot of things that turned out to be wrong. William worked hard those years. He'd leave at 6 in the morning for his construction job and come home at 5, eat dinner with us, then head out to the workshop to build furniture until midnight. That workshop was his sanctuary. The smell of sawdust and wood stain is still one of the most comforting smells in the world to me because it meant he was nearby, doing what he loved. I taught 3rd grade at the elementary school. Every afternoon, I'd come home with stories to tell at dinner. Little Johnny fell asleep during reading time again. Sarah finally learned to tie her shoes. The principal wore mismatched socks to the assembly. Robert would laugh and add his own stories from his middle school. Christopher would just listen. Our life was simple. It was good. We had cookouts in the summer with my sisters, Patricia and Diane. They'd bring their husbands and kids, and the house would fill with noise and chaos. The women would sit in the kitchen drinking iced tea and talking about recipes. The men would stand around the grill, arguing about sports and pretending to know how to fix things. The kids would run through the sprinkler until they were exhausted. On quiet nights, William and I would sit on the porch and watch the stars. We'd talk about the future, about Robert going to college, maybe studying engineering like he always talked about Christopher finding his way, whatever that might look like, about growing old together in that house, watching our grandchildren play in the same yard where their parents grew up. I thought we had time. I thought we had forever. I was wrong about that too. When Robert turned 18, something shifted in our family. It was subtle at first. Little things. Robert and Christopher would stop talking when I walked into the room. They'd be whispering in the hallway and then silence. I'd ask what they were discussing, and Robert would say, "Nothing, Mom, just guy stuff." I didn't push. That was my mistake. I should have pushed. William noticed it too. One night, after the boys had gone to bed, he said to me, "You see the way they've been acting lately?" "I see it," I said. "Probably just brothers being brothers. Robert's graduating soon. Christopher's jealous, maybe." "Maybe," William said, but he didn't sound convinced. The truth came out on a cold October night in 2005. But before we continue, I want to extend a very special invitation to you. Subscribe the channel and leave a like. This helps me see that you support me and enjoy my stories, and comment down below which city you are watching us from right now. Let's continue. Robert didn't come home for dinner. That wasn't like him. He was responsible, always called if he was going to be late. We waited until 7, then 8, then 9. I called his cell phone. No answer. I called his friends. Nobody had seen him since that afternoon. Christopher was in his room, supposedly studying. I knocked on his door around 10. "Chris, have you heard from your brother?" He looked up from his desk, and there was something in his eyes that I couldn't read. Something I'd never seen before. "No, Mom, haven't talked to him." "You sure?" "I'm sure." William went out with some neighbors around midnight. They searched the town, the roads, the places Robert liked to hang out. I sat by the phone, praying, crying, praying some more. They found him at dawn at the bottom of a ravine near the old bridge. The police said it was an accident, said he must have slipped in the dark, maybe been walking too close to the edge. They said he died instantly. They said he didn't suffer. I've learned since then that they say that to make you feel better, but you never know if it's true, and you never stop wondering. Robert's funeral was the worst day of my life. I wore the same black dress I'd worn to my father's funeral 5 years before. It still fit, but everything else about me felt broken beyond repair. Christopher stood next to me the whole time, silent. He didn't cry, not once. I thought he was being strong for me. I thought he was holding it together because I was falling apart. I held his hand and told myself that he was grieving in his own way. After the funeral, Christopher changed. He became more attentive. He'd bring me tea in the morning. He'd help William in the workshop without being asked. He'd sit with me in the evenings and watch TV, even though I knew he'd rather be in his room. I thought grief had softened him. I thought losing his brother had made him realize how precious family is. I was wrong. I was so wrong. The years after Robert died were hard, but they were also peaceful, in a way. Grief becomes a companion you learn to live with. It doesn't go away, but it stops screaming at you all the time. Christopher finished high school. He didn't go to college like Robert had planned to. He said he wanted to stay close, help us out. He got a job at a local hardware store and started learning carpentry from William in his free time. When he was 25, he met Vanessa. She was from a town about an hour away, worked as a receptionist at a dental office. Pretty girl. Blonde hair, big smile, always dressed nicely. She called me Margaret at first, and then after she and Christopher got engaged, she started calling me Mom. That word sounded so sweet coming from her. I'd waited so long to hear it again. They got married in a small ceremony at the church. Vanessa wore a simple white dress and carried wildflowers. Christopher looked at her like she was the only person in the world. I cried through the whole thing, happy tears for once. They had 2 children, Emily first, then Jacob. Beautiful kids, smart, funny, full of life. When they came to visit, the house would fill with noise and laughter again. Emily would help me bake cookies. Jacob would follow William around the workshop, just like Robert used to. Life was giving us a second chance. That's what I thought. Christopher started his own carpentry business. He was good at it, just like his father. He built custom furniture, kitchen cabinets, things like that. Vanessa kept working at the dental office. They bought a nice house on the other side of town. Everything looked perfect. But there were signs, little things I didn't notice at the time. Christopher would ask about our finances, not in a pushy way, just curious like, How much does a house like yours go for these days, Mom? You guys have any retirement savings? You ever think about selling this place, moving somewhere smaller? Normal questions, or so I told myself. Vanessa would look at our furniture with this funny expression, appraising almost, like she was calculating how much each piece was worth. I thought she just had good taste. Now I know she was counting our money in her head. The trouble started for real about 2 years ago, when William and I decided to update our will. We weren't rich by any means, but we'd saved our whole lives. Between the house, the land my parents left me, and our retirement accounts, we had about $250,000 to leave behind. Not a fortune, but enough to make a difference for our kids and grandkids. Christopher was the one who suggested we see a lawyer. "Mom, Dad," he said one Sunday after dinner, "you're both in your 60s now. It's smart to have everything in order. Make sure your wishes are clear." Vanessa nodded beside him, patting my hand. "We just want to make sure you're protected," she said in that sweet voice of hers. "You've worked so hard your whole lives. You deserve to have everything handled properly." The lawyer was a man named Mr. Thompson, old family friend. He'd handled the paperwork when we bought our house when my parents passed. We trusted him. He explained the options: trusts, beneficiaries, power of attorney, all those legal things that sound simple but aren't. Christopher had strong opinions about how things should be set up. "Mom should name me and Vanessa as the executors," he said. "That way we can make sure everything goes to the grandkids the way you want." William nodded along. He trusted Christopher, we both did. I had a moment of hesitation, a little flicker in my gut that said something wasn't right, but I pushed it away. This was my son, my only surviving child. Of course he wanted what was best for us. We signed the papers on a Tuesday afternoon in March. Vanessa wore a yellow dress and gave me a big hug afterward. "Now we're really family," she whispered in my ear. That should have been a happy moment, but something about her words gave me a chill. I couldn't explain it then. I can now. The next few months were strange. Christopher and Vanessa started visiting more often, but their visits felt different. They weren't just stopping by to see us anymore. They had agendas. "Mom, have you thought about selling this place?" Vanessa would ask, looking around the living room. "It's so much house for 2 people. You could get a nice apartment downtown, something easier to maintain." But I loved this house. Every room held memories. The kitchen where I'd cooked a million meals. The workshop where William still spent his evenings. The backyard where Robert learned to ride a bike and Emily caught her first firefly. "I'm not ready to leave," I'd say. And Christopher would get this look, just for a second, a flash of something that wasn't patience or understanding. "Mom, you're being stubborn," he'd say. "We're just trying to help." One night, after another conversation like that, I said to William, "Does it seem strange to you how interested they are in our money?" William was brushing his teeth. He paused, toothbrush in hand. "They care about us, Margaret, that's all." But I saw something in his eyes, a shadow, a doubt he didn't want to name. I started paying more attention after that, noticing things I'd missed before. How Christopher would look at our bank statements when he thought I wasn't watching. How Vanessa would ask detailed questions about our life insurance. How they'd exchange glances when we talked about the future. Something was wrong. I could feel it. It was William who finally told me the truth. We were in the kitchen one night, washing dishes after dinner. The kids had left an hour before. The house was quiet. "Margaret," William said, "there's something I need to tell you about Robert." I stopped with a plate in my hand. The water was still running, but I couldn't hear it anymore. "What about Robert?" William sat down at the kitchen table. He looked old suddenly, tired in a way I'd never seen. "The night he died," William said, "I didn't tell you everything." I sat down across from him. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. "What do you mean?" William took a deep breath. He looked at his hands, then at me. "I saw them that night, Robert and Christopher. They were arguing by the bridge." The world tilted. I grabbed the edge of the table. Arguing about what? About money. William's voice was barely a whisper. Robert had found out that Christopher was stealing from us. Small amounts at first, then more. Robert had proof, bank statements, records. He was going to tell us. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. And then I saw Christopher push him. The words hung in the air between us. I wanted to unhear them. I wanted to go back to 5 minutes before, when I still believed my son was a good man. Why didn't you tell me? My voice came out strange, not like mine at all. Because when I got there, it was too late. Robert was gone. Christopher was standing over him, crying, saying it was an accident. He begged me not to tell you, said he couldn't lose you too. William was crying now. I'd seen him cry twice in 40 years of marriage, once at his mother's funeral, once at Robert's. He was my son, Margaret, my only son left. I thought if I gave him a chance, he'd become a better man. I thought the guilt would change him. But it didn't. No, William shook his head. It didn't. He kept stealing, small amounts, I knew. I pretended not to. Every time I stayed quiet, I became more of a coward. I got up from the table, walked to the window, looked out at the yard where my children had played, where my grandchildren still played. How much? I asked. About $40,000 over the years, and his business is failing. He's in debt, bad debt, people who don't mess around. I turned to face him. He needs our money to survive. William nodded. And he'll do whatever it takes to get it. 3 days later, Christopher called. Mom, he said. His voice was warm, loving, the voice of a good son. Vanessa and I were thinking, Dad's birthday is coming up. What if we did something special? A weekend in the mountains, just the 4 of us. We could hike, take pictures, have a nice dinner, like old times. My blood turned to ice. I looked at William, who was listening from across the room. That sounds lovely, honey, I said. Let me talk to your father and call you back. I hung up the phone. He's going to kill us, I said. William nodded slowly. The mountains, an accident just like Robert. We sat there in the living room, holding hands, listening to the clock tick. 40 years together, and this was where we'd ended up, planning how to survive our own son. We could run, I said. Where would we go? He'd find us. And if he didn't, he'd get the money anyway when we died. The will gives him everything. Then we go to the police. With what proof? I've been covering for him for 30 years. I'm an accomplice. If I talk now, I go to jail too. He was right. We were trapped. Then we go, I said. We go to the mountains and we find a way to survive. The next 2 weeks were the longest of my life. We had to act normal. Had to smile when Christopher and Vanessa came over to discuss the trip. Had to nod along when they showed us the trail maps, the safety equipment, the camera Vanessa was bringing to capture special memories. Every smile felt like a lie. Every hug felt like a threat. William bought a small digital recorder. He hid it in his jacket pocket. If we survived, we'd have proof. If we didn't, maybe someone would find it. I wrote a letter to my sister Patricia, told her everything, hid it in the back of my closet with instructions to find it if anything happened to us. The night before the trip, we didn't sleep. We lay in bed holding each other, talking about our life together, the good times, the hard times, the children we'd raised and lost. If something happens to me, William said, I want you to know that these 40 years have been the best of my life. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. Nothing's going to happen, I said, but I didn't believe it. The Blue Ridge Mountains are beautiful in the fall. The leaves were turning, red and gold and orange. The air was crisp and clean. It should have been a perfect day. Christopher drove. Vanessa sat in the passenger seat, playing cheerful music and pointing out landmarks. William and I sat in the back, holding hands under a blanket. The trailhead was crowded with other hikers. Families with children, couples holding hands, people who were here to enjoy nature, not to die. We started walking. Vanessa took pictures of everything, the trees, the sky, us smiling for the camera. Come on, Mom, get closer to the edge, she said at one point. The view is better. I I stayed where I was. After about 2 hours, we reached a place where the trail narrowed. One side was rock. The other side was a drop. Not a cliff exactly, but steep enough that a fall would be serious. "This is a great spot for photos," Vanessa said. "Christopher, get one of me with Mom and Dad." We posed, smiled, click. "Now one of just you two," Christopher said. "Back up a little, get the valley in the background." We backed up, 1 step, 2. The edge was right behind us. Vanessa raised the camera. And then Christopher moved. He didn't push exactly. He lunged, arms outstretched, aiming to knock us both off balance. But William was ready. He grabbed Christopher's arm and pulled, hard. "If we're going," William shouted, "you're coming with us." For one terrible moment, we were all tangled together. Christopher grabbing at us, Vanessa screaming, rocks crumbling under our feet. And then we were falling. Time does strange things when you're falling. Seconds stretch into minutes. You notice things you shouldn't notice. The color of the sky, a bird flying overhead, the way the rocks look as they rush up to meet you. I hit the ground hard, heard bones break, felt pain like nothing I'd ever known. And then silence. I don't know how long I lay there. Minutes, hours, time didn't exist anymore. Then I heard William's voice, weak but there. "Margaret, don't move. Don't make a sound, play dead." I understood. I forced my body to be still, forced my breathing to be shallow, forced myself to be invisible. Nearby, I heard moaning. Christopher and Vanessa, they'd survived too. "I think my leg's broken," Vanessa whimpered. "Check the old people," Christopher said. His voice was cold now, no more pretending. I heard him crawling toward us, felt his hand on my neck, checking for a pulse, held my breath. "They're gone," he said after a moment. "Both of them." "Good," Vanessa's voice was hard. "It worked." I lay there, bleeding, broken, listening to my son and his wife discuss how they'd fake their grief, how they'd tell the police about the tragic accident, how they'd collect our money and pay off their debts. It took everything I had not to scream. They left after about an hour, crawling, limping, making their way back toward the trail to get help. William and I waited, listened to their voices fade, listened to the forest go quiet. Then William whispered, "Are you okay?" "No," I whispered back, "but I'm alive. My leg's broken, ribs too, I thank you." Arms, shoulder, head. I couldn't move my right arm at all, everything hurt. "We need to wait," William said. "They'll send rescuers. We need to keep pretending until we can talk to someone safe." Hours passed. The sun moved across the sky. I drifted in and out of consciousness. Every time I woke up, the pain was worse. Then I heard voices, rescue workers calling out. "Down here," someone shouted. I closed my eyes, went still, played dead. They found us, checked our pulses, called for stretchers. "This one's still alive," someone said about William. "Barely, the woman's in bad shape." They carried us up, put us in helicopters, flew us to a hospital. Through it all, I kept my eyes closed, kept my breathing shallow, kept pretending. The hospital was chaos, doctors and nurses everywhere, machines beeping, people shouting. I heard Christopher's voice in the hallway. "Please, you have to save them. They're all we have." Such a good actor, such a convincing performance. A nurse came to check on me, young woman. Name tag said Amanda. She was gentle, efficient, checking my vitals, adjusting my IV. And then Christopher came into the room. I felt him standing next to my bed, felt his hand on mine. Every instinct screamed at me to pull away. "Mom," he whispered, "I'm so sorry, I love you." Such lies, such terrible lies. Then he leaned closer, put his mouth next to my ear. "You should have signed the papers when we asked," he whispered. "Now Robert's waiting for you." He thought I couldn't hear, thought I was unconscious, thought he was safe. But Nurse Amanda was standing right there, and she heard everything. After Christopher left, Amanda came back to my bed. She leaned close, pretending to check my IV. "Ma'am," she whispered, "I don't know if you can hear me, but if you're in danger, you need to let me know somehow." I moved my finger, just a tiny movement, but she saw it. Oh my God. I moved my finger again. She straightened up, composed herself, walked to the door, looked both ways, then came back. I'm going to get the doctor and the police. Keep pretending you're safe. She left. I lay there, heart pounding, praying she'd come back before Christopher did. She came back with Dr. Evans and 2 police officers. Ma'am, Dr. Evans said quietly, if you can hear me, open your eyes. I opened them. The police officer, a woman named Detective Martinez, leaned close. Ma'am, we need to know what happened. Can you tell us? And I did. I told them everything. The will, the money, the mountain, the fall, Christopher's whispered words. They listened. They believed me. Your husband is alive too, Detective Martinez said. He's conscious. He's already told us part of the story, and he gave us his phone. It was recording the whole time on the mountain. Recording, William's phone, the proof. They arrested Christopher and Vanessa that night. I watched through the window as handcuffs went on, watched their faces change, watched the masks fall away. This is a mistake, Vanessa screamed. We're the victims here. But Christopher just stood there, silent. His eyes found mine through the glass, and for one moment I saw him, really saw him, the child I'd raised, the boy I'd loved. He was gone, had been gone for a long time. They took them away, charged them with murder for Robert, attempted murder for us, fraud, theft, conspiracy. The list went on and on. The trial lasted 6 months. I testified, looked my son in the eye and told the world what he'd done. Every word felt like a knife in my own heart, but I said them anyway. The prosecution played William's recording. The whole courtroom heard Christopher planning our deaths, heard Vanessa talking about how much money they'd get, heard them call us obstacles and problems to solve. The jury deliberated for 2 days. Guilty on all counts, life in prison, no parole. Vanessa got the same. She tried to blame Christopher, said he forced her, but the jury didn't believe her. They'd heard her on the recording, planning right alongside him. Emily and Jacob are 12 and 9 now. They live with us. It wasn't easy getting custody. There were hearings, investigations, social workers asking questions. But in the end, the judge agreed that the best place for them was with people who loved them unconditionally. They know what their parents did, not all the details. They're too young for that, but they know enough, and they're dealing with it in their own ways. Emily is quiet now, like Christopher used to be. She sits and watches, just like he did. Sometimes I catch her looking at me with those big brown eyes, and my heart breaks all over again. Jacob is more like Robert, always running, always laughing, always asking questions. He wants to know how things work. He wants to help William in the workshop. The other night, Jacob asked me, "Grandma, did my dad love us?" I held him close and said, "Yes, baby. He loved you the best way he knew how." I don't know if that's true, but it's what he needed to hear. We still live in the same house, the one on Maple Street, the one with the peeling porch and the yellow kitchen counters. Some nights I sit on the porch and watch the stars. William sits beside me. We don't talk much. We don't need to. The workshop still smells like sawdust. Robert's tools are still hanging on the wall where he left them. Christopher's first carved bird sits on the windowsill, gathering dust. Emily made cookies in the kitchen yesterday. She used my mother's recipe. The kitchen smelled like butter and sugar and childhood. Jacob caught his first firefly last week. He ran through the yard, hands cupped around the tiny light, shouting for us to come see. Life goes on. It has to. If you're listening to this story, maybe you're wondering what the lesson is, what I'm supposed to take away from all this pain. I've thought about it a lot, lying in the hospital, sitting in the courtroom, waking up at 3 a.m, reaching for children who aren't there anymore. Here's what I know. Love isn't always enough. I loved Christopher with my whole heart. I gave him everything I had, and he still became someone I didn't recognize. You can't fix people who don't want to be fixed. You can't save people who don't want to be saved. But you can keep living. You can keep loving the ones who are still here. You can hold on to the good memories and let the bad ones teach you something. I still love Christopher. He's my son. That will never change. But I've stopped hoping he'll become someone different. I've accepted who he is, and I've accepted that I can't change it. I write to Christopher sometimes. Short letters, nothing important. How are you? The weather is nice here. Emily made honor roll. Jacob lost another tooth. He doesn't write back. I don't expect him to. But I keep writing. Not for him, for me. Because he's still my son, and this is the only way I know how to be his mother now. Vanessa's family took the children's photos down from their walls. They don't talk about her anymore. I understand. Everyone handles grief in their own way. I keep the photos up, all of them. Christopher as a baby, laughing in his bath. Christopher at his wedding, looking at Vanessa like she was the whole world. Christopher with Emily in his arms the day she was born. Those are real moments. They happened. They matter. The man who pushed me off a mountain is not the same person in those photos. I don't know where that person went. I don't know if he was ever really there. But I remember him. I hold on to him. Because letting go of him would mean letting go of the last good thing I had. It's late now. The house is quiet. William's asleep in our room. The kids are in their beds, dreaming their dreams. I'm sitting at the kitchen table, the one William built with his own hands, writing this down, putting the pieces together, trying to make sense of a story that doesn't make sense. Maybe you're listening to this and thinking about your own family, your own children, your own secrets. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm just here to tell you what happened. Sometimes the people you love most are hiding the darkest truths. Sometimes the children you raise become strangers. Sometimes the life you built crumbles in a single moment. But sometimes you survive. You find a way to keep going. You find new reasons to love, new people to hold on to. Emily and Jacob are asleep upstairs. Their breath is soft and peaceful. They don't know that I check on them 3 times a night just to make sure they're still breathing. They don't know that I count their heartbeats against my fear. They will someday, when they're older, when they're ready. I'll tell them the whole story, the good parts and the bad, the love and the loss, the brother their father became and the brother they never knew. And I'll tell them this: you are not your parents' mistakes. You are not the darkness they chose. You are light. You are hope. You are the reason I kept living when everything fell apart. My name is Margaret Smith. I'm 63 years old. I've lost a son to death and another to evil. But I've gained 2 grandchildren who need me, a husband who loves me, and a life that goes on. And that's enough. That has to be enough.